Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed, streaming live, ksgf.com, through the app, online. You can watch the live video cam on YouTube, on Facebook, Facebook 1041 Nick Reed, the video feed. Thanks to our friends at Springfield Wraps, who also designed the KSGF studio. Tomorrow morning, it'll be out at Scramblers Friday Road Show, sponsored by Affordable Towing. And then we will have a happy hour. That's right, happy hour, my friends, at Retro Metro. Oh, they changed up their menu. That's always very exciting. We have Lunch Bunch there on Wednesdays, and I had a gnocchi, and you had tacos.
Yeah, I had fish tacos.
Swordfish tacos.
They were delicious.
Which you gave me a huge chunk of the swordfish off your taco, and it was great. If you've not been there for lunch, one of the things I like about it is these are uniquely designed dishes by the chef, not a cook, a chef at Retro Metro, and it's always a nice surprise. I forget to mention this. They also have an extensive heart healthy menu. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
And they all and low sodium stuff, and what was it?
Like gluten-free.
Gluten-free. And those who have the special dietary restrictions that have been on some of our lunch bunches, they ask, do you have anything? And they bring out a little separate menu for it. And they've all raved about how delicious it is and how much, how sometimes, particularly had a couple gals that were low sodium, and that it's very difficult to find those dishes, and they're so bland, and they just could not believe how delicious it was, saying it was the most delicious low-sodium thing that they had. So if you are someone that watches your diet, your sodium, your gluten-free, whatever it may be, heart-healthy stuff, definitely check out Retro and ask them about that menu because I think that you'll find you've got a great variety and definitely high-quality options for you there at Retro Metro. Tomorrow, again, our happy hour there from 4 to 6. We've got Author of the Week. We've got a really packed show today. Christy Fulnecki will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. In the 8 o'clock hour, we have our Author of the Week. And our author this week is Cynthia Hughes. Her nephew was an individual that spent I think almost a year and a half or year and a half in jail because he was ushered into the Capitol by law enforcement. He didn't do anything violent, no vandalism, but was there, and the doors were open and law enforcement waving people in, and he went in, and for that he spent a year in jail, just awaiting trial. So his aunt, Cynthia Hughes, started an organization called the Patriot Freedom Project, and they provide financial and emotional support to many of the prisoners and their families. The horrific things that they continue to go through as truly political prisoners here in the United States. And she has a book, Due Process Denied, January 6th, The Detained, the Families, the Fallout. She is going to be our Author of the Week. That, of course, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And then we are going to have, after 8:30, around 8:35, Secretary of State Ashcroft is going to be joining us. As you can see, we've got quite a bit today. Of course, the American Transmissions Talk and Text line is open for you if you want to text in or call in, 447 KSGF. That's also your ticket to get registered to win tickets for Springfield Cardinals. In fact, opening day today, you can text the word Cardinals to the KSGF text line. American Transmission sponsored, of course. That's 417-447-5743. And I got a lot packed in there, didn't I? Well, Joe Biden is getting a second challenger for the Democrat nomination. I know some of you may be going, he has a first. Marianne Williamson. Remember, she ran last time. She was Oprah's guru, spiritualist, and she's written a number of books. I believe at one point she, like Tulsi Gabbard, was accused of being a Russian asset by Hillary Clinton. And I think she was. No, maybe it was that Green Party chick, Jill, whatever her name was. Anyway, Marianne Williamson, she announced that she is going to seek the Democratic nomination. Yesterday, it's been reported that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is filing paperwork with the Federal Elections Commission. He did that yesterday, according to reports. Kennedy, the son of late former U.S. Attorney General Robert Kennedy and nephew of former President JFK, is now the second Democrat to toss his hat into the race for the White House. Kennedy advisor would not immediately confirm his candidacy, but told Fox News Digital the campaign will issue a statement tomorrow. Kennedy, a former environmental attorney who describes himself as a lifelong Democrat and has faced criticism for his activism against the COVID-19 vaccine, sparked speculation about a potential White House run by visiting New Hampshire, which for a century has held the first primary in the presidential nomination race. But I do believe that the Biden administration has been successful in getting that first primary move to South Carolina. I know that there was an attempt to. I'm not sure if they finalized it or not. I believe the reason that was done is the belief by the Biden campaign that he would easily secure South Carolina and do it by such a wide margin. So should he have any challengers, that it would be a foregone conclusion that he was going to get the nomination. So they wanted to move it to the front of the line. They wanted to get Iowa out of first place. They wanted to get New Hampshire out of first place in that whole caucus primary scheduling, which goes to show you how vulnerable they know Biden is within his own party, that they would completely upend the entire schedule of the primaries and the caucuses, all for the purpose of rigging the system. I mean, it's the same thing that the Clinton campaign did to Bernie Sanders. They rigged the system. This is why Tulsi Gabbard became such a vocal critic of the Democrat establishment and the Hillary Clinton campaign. She was a Bernie Sanders delegate, and she saw what was happening. They essentially stole the nomination away from Bernie Sanders. And so the thing about being cheaters for Democrats is sometimes they face their own. I mean, Republicans, of course, are always on the losing end of the Democrats cheating, but they do have to face off against one another, and they do cheat against one another. I mean, it happens. And that is what all of that moving the schedule around is all about, trying to rig it so that Biden gets that first big win. There are no questions about his viability, and you know, so be it. It's common practice for the Democrat Party. Kennedy said at an event in New Hampshire at the Institute of Politics, "I'm thinking about it. I've passed the biggest hurdle, which is my wife. She's green-lighted it." He took aim at the Biden administration and the DNC over the decision to move the New Hampshire presidential primary out of its position as the first in the nation primary. The state will now vote second, along with Nevada, 3 days after South Carolina under the new schedule. And where Iowa, again, falls in there, I'm not exactly sure. Iowa, of course, has a caucus system, which is different than the primary system. But nonetheless, it's still part of the selection of the nominee. Ahead of the DNC's final approval of the schedule, Kennedy wrote an open letter to the committee urging members to keep New Hampshire in the first spot because of the state's long history advocating for civil rights and election transparency and so forth. So anyhow, it's going to be interesting to see how the media covers these individuals. Now, Marianne Williamson, she has run before, and she can easily be dismissed and ignored. But Kennedy, he's long been involved in politics. He's long been a liberal activist, and he does have that Kennedy name. The Kennedys have always enjoyed from the media this romanticism. They just love the idea of the Kennedys. Now, are enough generations passed to where that no longer has the effect that it once did? How much of an instinct will there be to protect Biden? It's sort of it's a dangerous situation to some degree, because on one hand, you can look at the landscape, and if you are your number one goal is to keep a Democrat in the White House. Uh, do you want to give a challenger enough coverage that they could potentially take out Biden? But if they don't, but they come close, that really weakens Biden and potentially diminishes the likelihood that he could win the general election, because if he can't barely win his own nomination or his own party's nomination for a second term, that just doesn't look good. But on the other hand, completely dismissing somebody like Kennedy, and who there may be other Democrats throw their hat in the ring, can once again disenfranchise a lot of Democrat activists who already recognize how rigged the system is anytime the Democrats have any say. Jason Rima with the latest news update. First alert forecast, areas of fog or frost this morning. I did not see any coming. Did you see any coming? Yeah, you're north of 44.
No,
I'm
I didn't
not.
see any.
Okay. But some of the area, there may be frost. Otherwise, partly sunny, 57 today, 33 overnight. Widespread frost expected tomorrow with a high of 62, 66 Saturday, Easter Sunday, sunny with a high of 68. I mentioned in the opening of the program that Secretary of State Ashcroft is going to be joining us. Uh, the reason and the announcement has been made. I think he did the release. Is that correct himself?
Yes.
Is it a video or is it just a press
No,
release?
he launched a website.
Okay, and that is an announcement that he is making this morning that he is running for governor. This isn't necessarily a massive surprise. It has been speculated that was a plan that he had, but that official announcement coming this morning, and we will talk with him around 8:35 this morning about why he's running and the things that he seeks to do. If there are any particular questions that you have for Secretary of State Ashcroft in that context or in the context of his current position as Secretary of State, go ahead and you can text those in to the American Transmissions Talk and Text line 447-KSGF. New Rasmussen poll, Trump takes biggest 2024 lead so far over Biden. Former President Donald Trump shows the most significant lead yet over President Joe Biden in Rasmussen Report's most recent national 2024 presidential election poll conducted right before the arraignment earlier this week. While it is still unknown if Biden will run for another term or whether he will announce his decision, the president is trailing his predecessor in the poll by the largest amount to date. In the hypothetical showdown between Trump and Biden, Trump leads 47 to 40% of likely voters, with 11% saying someone else and 2% not sure. The most recent poll is a reversal from February, the last time that Rasmussen's report conducted a 2024 head-to-head national poll which showed Biden leading the hypothetical matchup 45 to 42%. Just after the poll was conducted earlier this week, Trump appeared in New York on Tuesday, his arraignment, where he pleaded not guilty, 34, so forth. We all know that background. The poll further found that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, a likely 2024 presidential candidate, also beats Biden in a hypothetical matchup. The potential 2024 opponent led Biden 46 to 38%, while another 12% said someone else and 4% were unsure. The poll found a significant difference in support between Trump and DeSantis when up against Biden. The poll indicated an only Trump fraction of the Republican voters, as 10% of the respondents preferred someone else if DeSantis was the nominee in 2024, compared to only 5% who wanted someone else if Trump was the nominee in 2024. So let's see. 10% of the respondents preferred someone else if DeSantis was the nominee compared to only 5% of someone. Okay, so that indicates, I think that Trump has a more loyal, adamant base to some degree as opposed to DeSantis, which makes total and complete sense. The undecided component both have this poll, and it's so generally at this point I don't even talk about these polls because they're not necessarily relevant to the actual presidential election, but they are, I believe, relevant regarding the likelihood that DeSantis will get in, whether or not he will. I think that these polls are significant in that capacity. And I find it interesting when you have, regarding Trump versus Biden, 11% saying someone else. Now, to me, if Trump is in the mix and Biden's in the mix and you say someone else, I don't see somebody saying someone else because they sort of are unsure about Trump or sort of don't like him. People who don't like him, I think, would vote for a mushroom before they voted for Trump. And I don't know that DeSantis is necessarily in that same position. There's 12% undecided when you put, or 12% rather, was it 12% someone else or undecided? Hold on here. Let me look again. Let's see, 12% said someone else, so about the same as Trump when you do the matchup between Biden and DeSantis. And I don't know, when you have 12% that say, no, I don't like DeSantis or Biden, I don't think people who at this point say I won't vote for DeSantis are as necessarily locked in, no way in hell I'll ever vote for DeSantis, like people are with Trump. Trump, people either love him or hate him. There's not a whole heck of a lot of middle ground there, where DeSantis still, to some degree, I think, has the ability to win people over who may think that they don't like him because of the media, and that could change. It may not, but once again, ultimately, in the end game, we're talking about an election a year and a half away and a primary system that does not start for another 8 months, around the time, even though politics in no way, shape, or form are involved, that the DA Braggs wants to really begin the process of going after Trump and trying to imprison him for 136 years. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Tomorrow we do have happy hour at Retro Metro 4 to 6. I'd love for you to swing by, say hey, have a drink, have something to eat. I don't know. I haven't talked with him. I don't think I saw Mark Long, owner of Garage Experts at the Man Show. We were out there on, Friday and Saturday. Sarah and I were out there Saturday specifically, so I went over and chatted with him for a while. And I don't remember if I asked him if he and Shelly were going to be at happy hour. I know when they're available to make it, they do, and it's a great opportunity, to meet them. They're great people. You'll really like them. And at the same time, if you have any questions, and I know a lot of you do, but you don't necessarily want to go to the hassle of reaching out because they're not you haven't in your mind really decided whether or not you wanted to have that complete transformation of your garage for flooring and storage purposes, it's a great opportunity to meet with them and ask any of those questions you may have. And of course, you can always watch the transformation of my garage on the video at 1041 Nick Reed in the world of Facebook, and visit them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Coming up, Representative James Comer is now getting contacted by attorneys, county attorneys, asking him how they can charge Biden, go after Biden. Now that we've established it's perfectly okay for a random DA in this country to charge a former president with federal crimes. No one's really bothered to explain how he can work outside his jurisdiction, outside the statute of limitations, and have an indictment that doesn't actually list what crimes have been committed, according to the DA's office. They're like, all right, fair game. The can of worms is potentially opened. Traffic update now. I'm Nick Reed. First alert forecast sponsored by Navant Employee Benefits that work. Sunny day, 57 for a high. Clouds, 33 tonight. Maybe some frost in the morning tomorrow. A high of 62. Mostly sunny, 66 on Saturday, and Easter Sunday, mostly sunny, a high of 68. Did you see that? This it's so stupid. There's a lot. A lot of times the real stupid news I save for when Christy Fulnecki is her hour, just because it's fun to talk about. And I've got some of that, but this one, and maybe we'll have time to bring it up. So this guy Dylan, who dresses up like a
yes.
girl, and there ought to be some standard for being officially transgender, because you have some individuals that are transgender and they go through the full-blown surgery. They get their, if it's a guy, they get their private top, chopped off, lobbed off, and then they, get reconstructive surgery down there in order to create a fake lady part, and then they have fake breasts put in, but then you have some of these guys, and I think that's what this Dylan guy is. They don't bother to do any of that stuff at all. None. They just put on some girl clothes, some girl makeup, and it's essentially today's version of blackface, but instead it's a guy that is over-exaggerating, dressing and makeup like a girl and performing for people's entertainment. He has been in the news because, of course, Bud Light has decided that he is an appropriate spokesperson for March Madness, which, again, I don't understand that connection, but whatever. Nike is evidently now paying him to be a spokesperson. And I don't know that Nike has said anything officially, but he is on his Instagram stories labeled, Nike is labeled as a paid partnership with him. So that's, pretty indicative of a sponsorship. They're having him, among other things, model sports bras. He doesn't even have fake breasts. I mean, you look at the
That'll
picture.
go over well.
It's a guy. Even if you want to buy into all of the transgender stuff, if you do that, you think, okay, well, a sports bra is to support breast. I mean, that's what it's for. So if you're a guy and you get breast implants put in, yeah, you're probably going to wear a bra, because that's what bra doesn't really know or identify any gender. It just identifies boobs. That's what, it doesn't matter who's got the boobs. That's what that's what they're for. And so if you're a guy and you get fake boobs, then okay, so it makes you get a sports bra, you get a whatever. He doesn't even have that. It makes no sense whatsoever. Are tampons next for this guy, or is Tampax or whatever other brands that exist out there? Are they going to hire him to be a spokesperson now for the product? I mean, it's just totally asinine. And this is, of course, where the ridiculous nature of it comes in. Some of this stuff, it doesn't, even if you, again, really are all in with this stuff, some of these partnerships make absolutely no sense whatsoever.
These people are insane.
I mean, maybe Midol. Maybe Midol should hire this guy as a spokesperson. Or pregnancy care centers. I mean, these things that are not in any way, shape, or form applicable, but it's so ridiculous, and it's just dumb. I really, some time ago, I accepted the fact that the peak of humanity, we're done. I don't know if you timelined it since the beginning of recorded history, it'd be a little easier, because you'd have a window of time. Well, like this century was the peak, or this decade was the peak. I don't know if there's an actual day that you could pinpoint. I believe the peak of humanity happened during my lifetime in terms of intelligence, enlightenment, intellectual approach to things, common sense. And we had, since the beginning of time, and it goes up a little bit, maybe down, up, but ultimately it just went up, up, up. We have just these amazing advancements in the sciences and the arts and understanding, And I mean, just look how quickly we have fallen to where you have companies hiring men who don't have even fake breasts to be a spokesperson for clothing that is for people with breasts. It would be the same as hiring a person who had their legs amputated and Nike using them to be a spokespersons for Air Jordans. Would not make a whole heck of a lot of sense, would it? But this is the world that we live in today. The American Transmissions Talk and Text line. Continuing to talk about mentally deranged people only gives them the notoriety they seek. It's disgusting. Let's talk about something else. Well, I guess that takes Biden off the table, and no more discussion about Nancy Pelosi or Kamala Harris. I'm kidding, of course. Of course, I'm kidding. Representative James Comer says that a couple of different county attorneys have asked him how they can, quote, go after Biden. This following former President Trump's indictment. He was on Fox and Friends yesterday, and he said, I'll tell you, one of the things that I don't think it's been picked up a lot that's going to be a problem. I had 2 calls yesterday, one from a county attorney in Kentucky and one from a county attorney in Tennessee. They were Republicans, obviously, both states heavily Republican. They want to know if there are ways we can go after Biden now. Now, how can you say no? Or, you could argue, well, because he's currently president, when he's not. Can they go after Obama? Can they go after Obama for Fast and Furious, for right now there is an ongoing trial. This is, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on it, but it's actually pretty interesting. I don't know if you remember this guy by the name of, he was an artist, Proz, I think. He was the artist he was with the Fugees. And then he had a big single, Ghetto Superstar. Many of you probably remember that song. And he is facing a lot of time in prison. I think there was a Rolling Stone or Variety article about this a few weeks back. And it's regarding millions and millions of dollars that was being funneled to the Obama 2020 reelection campaign from the Communist Chinese. And Leonardo DiCaprio, I believe it was yesterday, testified that the Communist Chinese were using a lot of celebrities like DiCaprio, like Proz, there's some others as well, to funnel, in this particular case, $30 million to the Obama campaign. So here you have the Obama campaign taking illegal, tens of millions of illegal donations from the Communist Chinese. Now tell me, what's more serious? Potentially paying a woman who had a consensual relationship with you not to talk about it, or taking tens of millions of dollars from a communist nation that sees us as their enemy? Which of those two things do you think really rise to the level? One of them, the former, Trump is facing 136 years in prison. That is what that DA has brought to the table. 136 years in prison is what he's seeking. What sense does it possibly make? I don't care who you are, what your political ideology is. No honest person can say that it makes perfect sense to have some local DA in the United States try to put a former president in prison, and not just a former president, but a presidential candidate in prison for 136 years, all based on a business ledger because of a relationship with a woman, but a past president who we know was taking tens of millions of dollars from a communist country that seeks us ill will, but you can't have a local DA go after that. You can't legitimately make those claims. And so you've got James Comer saying he's getting some of these attorneys across the country calling up saying, what do we need to do? I guess just do it. He's noted they set a precedent. Now we can't go back, and now we're going to see a judicial system that's already bogged down with doing what they're supposed to do, and that's going after real criminals, people that are committing real crimes, burglaries, rape, robbery, things like that. And now you're going to start having ambitious political people like Alvin Bragg try to make a name for themselves and go after the big pie-in-the-sky federal cases. It's just not a good path that we need to go forward on in our judiciary. Now, what Democrats are counting on is that Republicans won't ever do it. And here is what will occur. If they do, Democrats and the media aren't going to go, well, gosh, I guess turnabout's fair play. They will say that Republicans are turning this country into a banana republic and that Republicans are just doing this to get back at Democrats, and it'll, of course, be portrayed as dangerous politics because they have no sense of dignity. They have no sense of honesty. They have no pride. They're not embarrassed by the double standard that they lay out. The only thing they have not done at this point is fully acknowledge, yeah, we know it's a double standard, but we don't care. I mean, they acknowledge it with their actions, but with their words, they have not yet acknowledged it. But I suspect at some point that time will come. Hey, there was an insurrection in Tennessee. I've talked about this. This was last week. And in fact, Republicans are looking to expel 3 Democrat lawmakers because they were actually part of the insurrection. I'm not talking about, putting a fist in the air. 2 of them were on the floor with blowhorns screaming, 2 of the Democrat lawmakers. No action, no peace. Threatening violence. And the protesters there, this is just something that I think Republicans need to think about. I think there were like 1,000 protesters that they were insurrectionists, and they literally did push through law enforcement. Is a little different from the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, where law enforcement opened the doors and welcomed them in. In Tennessee, they tried to block them, and they were pushed over. Well, let's just treat them like the January 6th defendants are treated. Round them all up. Throw them in jail. Leave them there for a couple years, at least, without any trial. How can you argue against doing that? How can you say that trespassing in the U.S. Capitol is such an egregious danger to democracy, you deserve to be thrown in jail without any due process? But if you are in Tennessee and you do it in the state capitol, well, that's just peaceful protesting. You can't say that unless you're a dishonest hack. And perhaps it's time for Republicans to fight fire with fire and just take a lead from Democrats and round those people up. Doesn't matter whether they assaulted a police officer or not. In fact, every one of those police officers, I'd monitor those individuals. If any of them within the next year die, you can then claim that they were killed in the insurrection in the Capitol in Tennessee last week. I mean, that's how the media treats, five police officers lost their lives on January 6th. Doesn't matter that it wasn't true. So I'd keep track of every single lawmaker, every single staffer, every single law enforcement person. And within the next year, if any of them die, I'd start racking up that death count at the hands of the insurrectionists. Just treat it the same as the Democrats treat January 6th. They should have committees, hearings. They should edit video. They should falsify evidence that they put out there for public consumption. Let's just even Steven this thing, shall we? Missouri is a state that has, in my assessment, shamefully, for years, wasted a supermajority that Republicans have had. Uh, there are so many no-brainer things that are, we're told, part of the Republican Party platform, and yet, even with a supermajority, and now with a Republican governor, they don't get done. Usually it's somebody like Lincoln Huff who links arms with Democrats to block it from occurring. But oftentimes there are others as well. And it is amazing to me how slow rolling some of these protections for girls are. I mean, we've seen this, and there are some good Republicans that are trying to push legislation to protect girls from boys in the locker room and in sports, but also to protect kids from being lured into surgeries that they can never undo. And the Attorney General of Missouri has stepped in and put a temporary halt to these sorts of surgeries while he moves forward. We're going to have him on next week, so we'll see where things are like that. But it's amazing when you see how slow walking things like that are here in Missouri. And so over in North Carolina, there's a state rep by the name of Tricia Cotham, and she represents a district near Charlotte. She's a Democrat. She switched to Republican. And she did it for a number of reasons, and some of the reasons she cited is that as a Democrat, other Democrats were threatening her and trashing her because she would use an American flag emoji and prayer emojis, and so she just was disgusted by the nastiness and meanness. Well, her switching to the Republican Party in North Carolina has given Republicans a supermajority. There's a Democrat governor, so they can now override vetoes. They are fast-tracking crap like you would not believe. With new supermajority North Carolina, Republicans file bills aiming at protecting young girls. They have filed several bills yesterday. I mean, as soon as this occurred. The Fairness in Women's Sports Act. The School Athletic Transparency Bill, designed to ban boys from playing on female high school sports teams. The School Athletic Transparency Bill further cements the position of state Republican lawmakers. There's another one as well that is in the context. I think it has to do with the surgeries and so forth. And this is where Republican voters should be frustrated that with a supermajority for years, and they don't even need one now. You got a Republican governor, and here you have a state like North Carolina. I mean, the minute they get that privilege, they are working overtime to actually get stuff done. It'd be nice to see that sort of conviction in Missouri. Floors Plus, all of your flooring needs. Nixa, Springfield, 0% financing for 12 months. Listen, if you need any flooring work done, hardwood floors, luxury vinyl planking, carpeting, tiling, stop in, chat with these folks. They do a fantastic job. Easy process. They'll do measurements. You pick out what you want. They're like, here's what it'll cost. Let's set up a date and go. And, of course, with that 0% financing for 12 months, particularly with interest rates continuing to go up, it is a tremendous opportunity. Floors Plus, Nixa, Springfield. You can find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. We're going to have Christy Fulnecki with us this hour. We have a fantastic author of the week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books in the 8 o'clock hour, Cynthia Hughes. She is the founder of Patriot Freedom Project. And, in fact, I think it was just last week or the week before, Trump had dinner with some of these folks. Her book is Due Process Denied, January 6th, The Detained, the Families, the Fallout. In fact, one of her nephews, or her nephew rather, was one of the individuals that went into the Capitol because police officers waved him in. And then he spent a year in jail waiting for due process. And we're going to chat with her. Then Secretary of State Ashcroft is going to join us around 8:35. He has announced that he is running for governor in the state of Missouri. We will chat with him about that. Jason Ryman now with the latest news update. First Alert Forecast, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Partly sunny day, high 57, clouds 33 tonight, widespread morning frost tomorrow with a high of 62. Saturday, mostly sunny, 66. And then 68 on Sunday. Sarah Myers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Well, I had Beatles Property Maintenance out at my home on Friday to take a look at more items that I have added to my honey-do list. And I just wanted to brag on Killian for a moment, who's with Beatles Property Maintenance. Now, whenever you give Beatles Property Maintenance a call, Killian is one of the first crew members that will come out to your home. He takes a look at all of the repairs that you are needing done. He can tell you if it's something that they can tackle, but he also does more than that too. Whenever you have something more serious going on with your home, he helps provide ease of mind while also educating you on exactly what Beatles Property Maintenance can do to get to the root of that home repair issue. And that is one of the reasons that I love recommending the Beatles team. They're just genuinely good people who care about your home as much as you do. So if you do find yourself needing a home repair, highly recommend giving the Beatles team a call today. You can find their contact information housed at ksgf.com under the Sarah's Endorsements tab.
All right. So they're evidently, for whatever reason, these allegations or claims that part of the indictment included that Trump had a love child or something. So what? I guess this all goes back to, at some point there was a doorman who claimed, now no one else has ever claimed this. Like no woman has ever claimed that, oh yeah, or no child has ever said Trump's my father, or no one. But there's a doorman who somehow he's the one person who evidently knew this, and he was offering to sell his allegations for a bunch of money. And so that, to Democrats, proves that Trump has a love child somewhere. And they're all excited about this for some reason. And I'm thinking to myself, do you not know that Clinton, there is an actual human being that I believe is an adult at this point in Arkansas who for years and years and years has been saying, Clinton is my father. His mother was a prostitute. Maybe she still is. I don't know. And people who have been interviewed around there, they locally, in areas of Arkansas, wherever this prostitute frequented, they all act like everyone knows that this is Clinton's child. This guy has pleaded for a third-party, independent facility to do a DNA test. And when you look at photos of this guy, I forget his name, he looks like him. He has very similar features. But for whatever reason, that doesn't seem to matter to the Democrats. But if Trump had a love child, oh, well, this is the, oh, look at that. This proves that he's an awful human being. Okay. That's how this works? Well, of course, if you're a Democrat, that's how this works. Democrats do something, it's cool, it's fine. Republicans do it, throw them in prison. The hilarity of Democrats wanting Trump to go to prison, again, 136 years is what the DA prosecutor is seeking. Ultimately, what's it about? A consensual sexual relationship that didn't happen in the Oval Office with an intern, by the way. That wasn't an accusation of rape or sexual harassment or sexual assault. It's about an alleged consensual relationship. Those of you who were around and paying attention during the Clinton years understand the lunacy of this and the total, complete lack of moral compass for Democrats who, during the period of time that Clinton was being investigated, and that's a guy who committed perjury. He committed perjury regarding this issue. He was disbarred for it. He got people to destroy evidence, to hide evidence. His Betty, I forget her last name. There was this elderly black woman that he had hide evidence. I forget, they were gifts or something between him and Monica Lewinsky. Betty Curry, I think maybe was her name. And Democrats kept saying it's just about, the Republicans are a bunch of sex police individuals. We're talking about using your power and influence for sexual, and Clinton, of course, the guy who's been accused of rape, sexual assault. He admitted to sexual harassment of Paula Jones, having law enforcement officials bring her to his hotel room and then unzipping his pants and exposing himself, expecting her to perform for him. Of course, she didn't. She fled. Hillary Clinton led the charge in trashing her. James Carville said, drag a $5 bill through a trailer park and this is what you get. I mean, it was the single largest, other than Democrats' efforts now to target girls and women with all this transgender stuff. At that time, it was the single largest attack on individual women in this country that you would see. Any woman that Clinton had an affair with, the Democrats just trashed, destroyed their reputations as best they could. Oh, it's just about sex. That's private stuff. We didn't elect the Pope. You know the organization MoveOn.org? That all originated out of Democrat activists that said Republicans are just a bunch of sex police obsessed. And we need to, quote, move on. That was the origins of that organization. That we need to move on from all of this because it's just their private life. Now, of course, again, with Lewinsky, Clinton was president and she was an intern, not much older than his own daughter. The same people who acted horrified. They talked about what an embarrassment we were to the world. You know, other countries, they aren't so puritanical. Other countries, the president of France, he has a girlfriend. Everyone knows it. They just accept it. They're so much more enlightened than Americans are. We're so prudish in this country. It's so embarrassing. Republicans, Ken Starr, turning this country into one giant embarrassment. Those are the same people that are standing out applauding the fact that you have a DA seeking to put Trump in prison for 136 years from something that originated from an alleged consensual sexual relationship a couple decades ago. It's traffic update time. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Aller Building Company, Woodcrest Development, new in Ozark. Golden Weaver, the new subdivision under development there. I know some of the homes are available. Woodvale, and this is for folks that want brand new homes. No remodeling necessary. You get it the way you want it from the get-go. That is Aller Building Company, OLLER. Text message coming in. Don't forget, Joe Biden's been accused of sexual assault. Yes, but see, he's a Democrat. Former aide when he was a U.S. Senator, Tara Reid, accused him of violent sexual assault. I said it. I predicted it. Now, it's completely accurate. The election of Joe Biden ended the Me Too movement. Remember all the I believe her? We should believe the accusers. Well, except for Tara Reid, of course. I mean, she doesn't count. She probably had it coming. She probably wore a skirt that was too short, sent out signals. Maybe she had eaten ice cream and a little bit fell on her blouse, and Joe couldn't help himself. When Joe Biden was vice president, there was also an incident in which a Secret Service agent was reprimanded after attacking Joe Biden because he sexually assaulted the Secret Service agent who was either girlfriend or wife right in front of him. When Judicial Watch requested the investigation and the write-up of the Secret Service agent, they said that they had destroyed it. But again, we need to put Trump in prison for 136 years because of a consensual relationship that he had decades ago. I want to go ahead and just get a 60-second break out of the way here. I know we just had one, but then Christy Fulnecki is joining us, so we're going to chat with her. Reminder, a great author of the week coming up in the next hour after 8:35. Secretary of State Ashcroft will join us talking about his announcement today that he is running for governor in the state of Missouri. Someone asked, doesn't the House of Reps have a slush fund for sexual assaults, et cetera? Yeah, in fact, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for the Republican nomination, noted that, so really we're going after Trump for a consensual relationship payoff. That's the allegation. But Congress, he cited the fact, I think in the last 20 years, $18.2 million have been paid out in hush money for sexual harassment, sexual, I know, right?
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact,
I'm not
I
surprised.
couldn't remember the exact number, so and there was a CNN story from 2017 noting that Congress paid $17 million. Then there is an article from 2021. It was 18.2 at that point. I think that's the number that was cited. There was in the 2019 report, there were 16 employees paid a total of $600,000 in settlements. 20 claims were filed, and it goes on. But I guess the slush fund is $18.2 million. Yeah, and so that's sexual harassment, sexual.
Yeah, and
assault.
they're such hypocrites because when I worked on Capitol Hill, there were people that told us stories about the pages, the interns, and the pages are in high school, and then you have interns that are high school, college. All kinds of affairs going on up there. So, I mean, these people, they have to be careful on who they're accusing of this. It happens.
Well,
it's pretty rampant.
Yeah, it seems to not matter.
I know. I'm telling you, it is so crazy. I can't even believe what's going on right now. Especially as an attorney. I'm actually glad I'm an attorney right now listening to this, but I can't believe it.
I think what they're banking on is that there are enough members of Congress who have done this sort of thing that no one will make an issue of that. So even that they're going to keep kind of quiet. They don't want let's not talk about that too much, because when you're talking millions and millions of dollars in hush money that's paid, of course they're like, it's not hush money, it's settlement. Well, why isn't Trump's non-disclosure agreement situation called settlement or what?
Well, the crazy thing is there's not a violation of anything. There's not any law that's been broken.
Yeah.
And talk about the thing that shocks me is the constitutional rights of his that are being violated. And I know that's like of all the people that listen to your show, every common sense American are like thinking this could be me. Well, of course it could be you. If they can do that to Trump, they can do that to you. And and looking at the indictment, that's why I hate grand juries, and for him to not even know what the charges are against him and to be able to fight that. That is such a violation of your rights.
So some legal folks are trying to figure out why it is, okay, so you can look and go, well, Bragg's just really, really bad at his job. Others are saying, well, it's just because he didn't do anything illegal, so he can't put it in there. But some are speculating that that because he knows that he can't win, or he believes he can't win, he is keeping it exceptionally vague, so that maybe some other DA elsewhere can charge him with those things,
Yeah.
and they won't have to worry about a double jeopardy
Yeah,
component coming into play.
yeah, I thought about that,
Yeah.
but well, I mean, still,
But that's what's if they're trying to figure out, because none of this makes any sense. I mean, even Democrats, they're like, well, it could mean this, it could mean that's not how this is supposed to work. An indictment is
I
supposed to
know.
tell you, all right, here's what you did, and this is where it's illegal,
Yeah.
and then you are
because
like,
you have a right
okay,
to defend yourself.
right.
Yeah.
In other words, you have no way of defending yourself.
Well, it'll be interesting when they file to get the motion for the transcript from the grand jury to see what happened there. I'd like to know exactly what he said, because I mean, it doesn't make sense at all. And I mean, it's just, the whole thing is just so frightening to me. And listening to all the legal scholars this week, and they had a GW professor on there, and I kept thinking, am I missing something? I mean, this doesn't make sense at all. And I mean, it's just the whole thing is so frightening to me. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I mean, that, and I've said it before, that trickles down to our local courts and our state and our local courts. And it's hard, especially when you have something like statute of limitations, or now, I mean, the judge could throw this out, but when you have something
but it's
like
past the statute of limitations.
yeah, that's what I mean. When you have statute of limitations violations, which is passed, I mean, and there's no actual crime. I mean, I'm like,
well,
and I kept thinking when they read it, I kept thinking, oh, well, where's the crime? They're going to eventually say the crime, and then they never said what the crime was.
Well, and just another layer of the absurdity of this is the fact that Bragg is out there claiming that this was part of a plot to alter the outcome of the election, but then he says the payments were made after Trump was already elected president. Well, why? How is he trying to alter the outcome of the election after the election was over?
Yeah, right.
So, I mean,
know.
nothing
well,
about
and the confusing thing is, people hear, oh, business records. I mean, nobody actually knows what that is, and it's his own company. So it's not like he's violating.
Well, and that's the other thing. According to the state statute, there has to be a victim. There has to be somebody that you defrauded, or that, and that doesn't exist either.
Yeah, and then also when you have, there's different fiduciary duties that you have when you have a company and you're on a board of directors or you're an owner, and a shareholder, somebody can bring actions against you. I mean, there's not even a civil case that this is criminal that we're in, but you don't even have a civil case regarding his company. And so everybody is like, oh, that business, when they walk around New York and ask people, I mean, the business records, you're not even in a public setting. This is a private company.
I'm telling you,
I mean, it doesn't even make sense.
This is Kafka's The Trial, which has always been a story that has been used to illustrate the tyranny of government. And the central character one day is told he's charged with a crime, and he's told he can go about living his life until the trial, but he can't. He's trying to find out what he's been charged with, and this authority that charged him, he can't find out, doesn't even know, so he can't defend himself. And I mean, this is exactly it. This is the dystopian society that the Democrats have created.
And the crazy thing in civil court right now, at least on a couple of my cases in family law, on motions to, when you modify custody, you have to get over right now, which I think is a pretty high bar even to get into court. I mean, because people say, oh, frivolous lawsuits. Well, that's usually what they're talking about in civil court. But there's such a high bar even to get in court. And then you think criminal cases have an even higher bar, and here they're going to be in court for nothing.
It's amazing. You think about all the books that so many of the novels that we read growing up that were warnings about tyrannical societies, all are describing what Democrats have done. 1984,
You're right, yeah.
Animal Farm, Fahrenheit 451, Kafka's The Trial. Every one of these that have been held up as these iconic pieces of literature that are warnings about what happens under tyranny. And they're all, the Democrats are, that's the reality that they're creating for us. We got Christy Fulnecki with us. Got to get a traffic update more coming up in mere moments. I'm Nick Reed. Don Carricker, I want a great homeloan.com because you do. If you also want to have a great conversation with Don Carricker, you can do so. He is slated to join us tomorrow at Scramblers. He's usually there around 8 o'clock or so. So if you do have any home loan questions, oftentimes Anthony or Alex, usually Anthony, are also with him to come on air and just give us an update on what's going on in the world of home loans, because it's ever changing and they're on it every single day. So any questions you have. But if you can't make it out to do that, it's easy to reach out to them. They're always available. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. We've got a first alert forecast. Partly sunny, 57 today, clouds 33 tonight, widespread frost tomorrow, 62. Saturday, sunny, 66. Easter Sunday, sunny, 68. Christy Fulnecki. Oops.
Oh, now I need to go back to the days long ago where I would say, am I on?
Yeah, like a month ago. Little Mermaid, Disney, they're doing this live action remake of Little Mermaid. And I think this is the one where for a while they tried to pretend that there was outrage because the Little Mermaid was black or whatever.
Yeah,
And
why is there so many controversies with Little Mermaid?
Here's what this is what they do. They will take a character and make a major alteration, usually white to black.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And then they will claim that conservatives are outraged. Now, there's never any overwhelming outrage, not even measurable.
And it makes it more confusing too.
But you can, but you can always find somebody on the internet to complain about anything. I mean, so what they do is they just go and they find one person, and then they portray it as, see, this is the country we live in, and Republicans are horrible and awful, and they act like there's this big outrage. Well, anyway, so this movie, I guess, has been in development for the longest time. Well, the composer, Alan Menken, did an interview with Vanity Fair, and he said that some of the songs they've changed, they've updated the lyrics to. One of them is the song sung by Sebastian the Crab, titled "Kiss the Girl."
Oh, that's a good song.
Yeah, well,
except I probably won't like it now.
But this is so he says that the lyrics have been changed so that the audience knows that Prince Eric would never, quote, force himself on Ariel.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Well, because I mean, the number of rapes after Little Mermaid came out went up. So, I mean, it was very, especially amongst children that watched it.
All your law-abiding teenagers and toddlers went out there.
I mean, I remember watching Little Mermaid as a kid, and I was out there like, I gotta find me a mermaid to rape.
What is it?
The stupidity of these people.
I mean, really, it must be a lot of time on their hands. Why is it that Disney always mess everything up? It makes me not ever want to go. I mean, when you have kids, you feel like you're obligated to go there at least once, but it makes you not even want to step foot in that place.
Another song that they have edited is from Ursula, who's the evil sea witch.
Yeah.
And the lyrics are, the men up there don't like a lot of blabber. They think a girl who gossips is a bore, yet on land it's much preferred for ladies not to say a word. And after all, dear, what is idle babble for? Now, of course, she's evil.
Right.
And she's trying to convince Ariel to give her voice. So she's telling her, up there, you want to find a man and so forth. And so Menken told the outlet, we have some revisions in that song regarding lines that might make young girls somehow feel that they shouldn't speak out of turn, even though Ursula is clearly manipulating Ariel to give up her voice.
Oh,
so even like the evil characters, they don't want to portray as evil because...
I wonder why that is.
I mean, it's just... And I know, again, while I was out as a kid after watching Little Mermaid, looking for mermaids to rape, I was also noticing that there were a lot of girls that just weren't opening their mouth. They weren't talking. I'm like, this is really weird. Why are all you girls being so quiet?
They're all
and now I know why. And now I know why. It's because they just felt triggered, and Ursula sang those lyrics. And...
Well, no, she's the Little Mermaid was empowered. I mean, there was nothing about her that was being manipulated.
Funny on this issue.
This is so stupid.
It is so stupid.
I mean, it really is.
This theme that occurred some years ago, particularly when it comes to Disney and Disney princesses and so forth, and that They were misogynistic because they just always portrayed that a woman needed a man and so forth. And I'm like, have you watched some of these movies? I mean,
No.
like Beauty and the Beast. That whole storyline.
Oh, yeah.
Here is a guy that if he doesn't get her,
Exactly,
he stays
I
a
know.
beast for the rest of his life.
That's
He
right.
so his entire livelihood is dependent on this girl. So many of these, it's a mutual
Oh, yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But they
Cinderella.
act like, yeah.
Well, and
Cinderella.
Yeah, Cinderella, Princess and the Frog. Like, that's a newer one. But, I mean, all of those are about strong women.
Yeah, and Cinderella,
And-
this is about a guy, he's so desperate to
Yeah.
be with this girl. He goes around with his glass slipper trying to find her. And I'm like, I don't think you've really paid attention to these movies because they're not all, oh, the helpless girl whose entire life depends on the man, and that's the end of the story. There are a lot of them. It's the other way around.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, because remember how in Beauty and the Beast, how she talked to the Beast? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
yeah.
But like I said, this is a guy
Basically, get a life.
who has to isolate himself in,
Yeah.
in a castle because otherwise people will kill him, and his
Yeah.
only hope is for her to accept him and fall in love. And
And he was the one self-conscious, obviously, because
Yes.
the way he looked. They probably haven't even seen the movies. I'm telling you.
they're
And you know,
just
that makes me
insane.
so mad because some of those songs are great. I mean, my kids grew up listening to all those songs.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Little
I mean,
Mermaid's still one of my
because there's
favorites.
nothing else you can really listen to, and then you mess that up. I'm telling you, it's so confusing. And then my sister, one of my sisters, sent me this about the Cracker Jack thing. Have you seen they changed Cracker Jack
No.
to this? I'll show you a picture on the break, but to this black woman on the front, and I'm like, okay, well that really causes you to think about
So-
which one's a cracker.
So-
She's not a cracker.
What? So they
And
put a
she's not
black woman on the
Jack.
front?
Yeah, of Cracker Jack.
Was it? Is this real or was it?
I
a
don't
parody?
know. I thought it was real. Maybe it's not, but
Because
I seriously thought it was
It
real.
wouldn't surprise me that
Okay,
that
but-
we would live in a society where Aunt Jemima
I
is
know,
taken
it's-
off of, but
I know.
who knows that?
I'll show you.
But
Maybe
this
it is real, but it was so confusing.
But this is how ridiculous the left has made things. And in fact, there was an interview with the editor of the Babylon Bee saying it's literally hard now to write satirical, sarcastic headlines into it because so much of that stuff is actually true. And
Well,
these
I
things
know,
to
that's
where
right.
you can say something like that, and you don't know whether because it sounds absurd. It could be somebody trying to make a point, a joke, but it could also be true at the same time.
Yeah, 20 years ago, I would have thought it was a joke, but I'm like, wow, that's kind of shocking. I'm like, which one? Maybe she was supposed to be Jack.
I'm
Maybe she was transitioning.
I am, yeah, self-identifying.
They did change the logo. It is now it's Cracker Jill, and it's packaging to celebrate women in sports.
Well, how do you know Jack isn't a girl?
Oh.
That's a good question.
Jack could be like Dylan Mulvaney, could be
Well, see,
self-identifying
look
as a
at that.
girl.
I was right about it. I seriously thought
But
it was serious.
is Jill black?
Well, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 different women that are featured on these new packages. One of which is black, and I
Yeah.
think 2 are Asian, and one's Hispanic, and then we do have a white Cracker Jill.
A white cracker, Jill. I hope those
I
of
mean,
you on the
so
left
confusing. By
just
the
really
time
just
you-
revel in
By the
this
time
absurdity.
you look at it, you're like, is there anything in the box? I'm not going to buy this because is it empty? I mean, are you
you look around the landscape and you think
Uh-huh.
about the contributions that people provide to society, and these are the contributions that people on the left are give
I
to the world.
know.
This is their contribution to
I
society.
know, it's-
So I am curious. I will. I don't anticipate I will watch this Little Mermaid just because I like the original, a lot of times I don't like when they cartoons and then they make them real life. I don't know. It just doesn't sometimes translate to me.
Okay.
But I wonder what they'll change the lyrics to.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you
Because
earlier.
that's the
What
whole-
did they change the lyrics
Well, I don't.
to?
They haven't
Oh, okay.
said. It talks about the original lyrics, but in this article they don't say. But like that one song, "Kiss the Girl," that's the whole point of that song, is Sebastian sort of whispering in his ear and trying to get him to kiss her. And if you are taking out the lyrics that you feel might be seen as Eric forcing himself on her by kissing her, I guess without her permission, what lines are you going to have in there?
Which is kind of shocking.
I mean, the
yeah.
entire song you might as well get rid of because that's the whole point of the song.
Well, which is so
Idiots.
weird because they're the ones that are trying to sexualize children. And I mean, so
Maybe
how
she should
ironic
be
is
12.
that? I know, I know that's right. Yeah, then maybe it's okay. After
They
that.
can't even
I mean,
keep their
it's-
own twisted virtue signaling straight.
Well,
They
I
can't.
know.
Like you said, that's an excellent point. I mean, they're all about sexualizing kids and lap dances for 14-year-olds with drag queens, and
Yeah,
they're
and
like,
you're
how
worried
can you
about
be
Little
yeah,
Mermaid?
like about a cartoon guy kissing a mermaid?
I know. I mean, they're so spinning out of control.
They are. Christy
That's
Fulnecki
right.
with us.
Okay, I'm
Coming
here.
up more. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Fulnecki with us.
Yes.
Have you? Do you guys watch college or girls' college basketball, or
Well,
you've been following
we-
this stuff?
Just a little bit because my daughter was at LSU.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
and they
that's
won the
right, that's
championship.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
The following that I've done of this is the most of any basketball of
I was
any
gonna
sort.
say, yeah,
or
right?
I just
Yeah.
don't follow basketball.
Yeah.
And of course, this has gotten some attention, and it all started with this LSU player by the name of Reese, and this sort of back and forth with her and the girl from Iowa. Is that the
Yeah.
other, yeah. And sort of the throwing smack and everything, and it was blown seemingly out of proportion because both of them seemed to be like, no big deal.
Yeah, right.
But then, so the White House is managed. It's so funny.
No, they
What-
have they got involved in this?
Oh my gosh, you have not. This is so.
No,
This is so wonderful.
This is so crazy.
All I can think about is one of the quotes that Obama once said about Biden is never underestimate the ability of Joe to F things up. But this time, but Jill also has this talent. Now, you remember Jill, she got herself in trouble because she compared Mexicans to tacos.
Yeah,
that
right.
one
Yeah,
time.
that was a highlight
Yeah.
of her of her being first lady.
So
Knocked it out of the
she-
park there, Jill.
She is taught. She was at the game, and at some event, she was talking about the game and congratulating LSU. And so the winners of these, the winners always come to the White House. You know, the winners of the Super Bowl, the this and that, and so she was talking about having them at the White House, and then she announced that she was going to encourage Joe to invite Iowa to the White House as well because they did such a great job. Well, immediately racism came, because they're white. That's what Iowa's white, LSU's black. And so she began to get accused of inviting them because they're white and saying if it were the other way around, she wouldn't have said the same thing. And so the Iowa player was on some interview and said, we shouldn't be invited. We didn't win.
Good. That's common sense.
The LSU player, Reese, said, what a joke. We're not even going.
I know. I heard. So they're not going,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. She said,
I heard that part.
and she's like, I'll go see Barack and Michelle. She goes, well, what a joke. We're not going to go see the Bidens. And now, evidently, she revealed that before the game, Jill Biden, they came down and they said, hey, Jill wants to come down and kind of say hi to you guys. They said no. They said, we don't want her down here.
I gotta tell you, I mean, that is hilarious.
Yeah, she said apparently, so she revealed in appearance on I Am Athlete's Paper Route show, she said Biden was supposed to visit both locker rooms before the game. Quote, apparently she was supposed to come to our locker room before the game, but we said no. She was supposed to come to our locker room and then go to Iowa's locker room. I don't know if she talked to them, but we said we didn't want to. We didn't want her coming into our locker room. Reese said the decision was because Joe Biden's March Madness bracket, he predicted LSU wouldn't get very far. She said, I think Joe Biden had put somebody else to win the national championship. He didn't even put us in his bracket to get out of Baton Rouge.
Oh, that's awesome.
She said, so I was like, I think he said that we were going to lose to Michigan or something. Biden did have LSU losing to Michigan in their second game. He also predicted a poor performance for Iowa, guessing they would lose to Stanford. So like everything else, Biden's wrong.
Yeah. I'm sure Biden didn't fill that out.
And then Jill Biden then later clarified. The Bidens cannot clarify anything
Please
without.
do not. Just stop.
Yeah.
You're making it worse. You're digging a
That's
bigger
what
hole for yourself.
there
Just
should
stop.
be one Biden
Stop.
staffer that just has a sign that says "Just stop." That is always there, and it's got little flashing
like
LEDs on it.
Literally a train wreck
Just
coming
stop.
right now.
So the last part of this article reads: Jill Biden later clarified her comments were. Or her comment was hyperbolic and was only meant to praise the playing of both teams. Well, that's obviously a lie.
No, that's
so
please
she's
stop,
saying that
please
if
stop.
Iowa was really excited and they were like, "Oh, we can't wait to come," that Joe Biden would have said to them, "Oh no, I didn't really mean it. I was just being."
Okay, for one thing, I don't think anybody in the White House has ever played a sport ever. Between Kamala going to Howard and saying, "You guys are all winners" when they lost, and between this. I don't think they've ever played a sport because if they knew like competition is to win, like please don't get involved in any sports.
Or
okay?
Kamala praising the fact that they played until the game was over. That was one of my favorite parts. You guys played until the game was over. Have you watched a game play before? That's how it works.
Please do not get involved in one sport. I mean, it's bad enough. Like the country's a train wreck. Leave our sports alone. But well, obviously they're involved with the trans thing.
I really hope that they manage to keep this LSU thing going because it's just like every time they open their mouth, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
Well, like what do they think? These girls are idiots? I mean, these are tough girls that are out there playing college sports. You think that they're really going to fool everybody? I mean, I don't think so.
It's delicious.
The whole thing, like this became such a big controversy, and it wasn't like they were hitting each other. They were just like yelling at each other, weren't they, or cursed or whatever?
So the Iowa player, so originally the Iowa player, and it was in the heat of the game. I didn't see this, but this is what I've read. She did that sort of "I don't see you" thing. That was it. One of the wrestlers, is it Cena?
Yeah.
He waves his hand in front of his face, saying, "I don't see you." And then the LSU player did it back, and she was criticized more heavily for it. Some people said racism, but other people said, listen, in sports there's a difference. You do that stuff in the heat of the moment, which is what the Iowa player did. The LSU player did it after they already won the game and followed her, tracked her down, and did it in her face. And so it was more some people said it was poor sportsmanship because it wasn't done in the
Well,
standard sort of throwing, whatever at each other. But I don't know, whatever.
I mean,
how it all
okay, that's
started.
fine. Like, people were really upset about the sportsmanship part of it.
Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, I'm sorry, but men's sports, that stuff happens all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So just because they're women doesn't mean that they
Well,
can't,
and that's what the
you know?
Iowa player was
I mean,
like.
really,
People
give
just
me
lay
a
off
break.
her. The
Yeah.
Iowa player's like, it's no big
I
deal.
mean,
Just
it's
lay
not
off
like
her.
they were out hitting each other
Yeah.
or whatever. I just think that's just so much
Well,
drama.
all I know
from...
is that as all of this in the White House every single day, and it's where I just keep thinking of Biden saying, or Obama saying, never underestimate Joe's ability to F things up, and how clearly Joe Biden is also in that same
Well,
category.
I mean, he's not the one filling the bracket out. That's another point I want to make. Unless they said, okay, if you fill this out, just write down your favorite ice cream.
Yeah, that's right.
And
yeah.
then we'll just go and translate it for you. Okay?
Yeah, and in fact, they just had stickers of ice cream representing the team so he could place them.
There's no way he did that by himself.
More with Christy Fulnecki in a moment. We got about, a minute and a half left. Christy Fulnecki, Secretary of State Ashcroft's going to be with us a little after 8:30. He's announcing today he's running for governor, and you were asking, who on earth will run against him?
I know, yeah.
And
great name recognition.
Yeah, Democrat-wise, there are no statewide well-known Democrats. Nicole Galloway, maybe she would, but I doubt it, given just the fact that she lost.
Yeah,
recently.
right, yeah.
Claire McCaskill, maybe. I don't know. Who was the guy that was it? Van? What was his name? He was a Democrat, and he dropped out of the race for mental issues or something.
Oh yeah,
I can't even recall. He ran against Holly, didn't he? For that. For.
Do you remember? I can't remember.
I can't recall either at this point. But yeah.
I don't know. Ashcroft would be a great governor. I don't know. What's going on in the country, I can't imagine that Claire McCaskill, with her mojito or whatever that she drank, I can't imagine that she would have a chance right now.
You thought she was a nut before. You just listen to her on MSNBC sometimes. It's
there is a tidal wave. If you thought there was a tidal wave for Trump in the beginning, it is overwhelming now. People are not going to put up with this. When it comes to affecting you when it comes to affecting you personally, as far as being accused of a crime, it's one thing, to pay high prices for gas and food, but when you could be thrown in jail,
Right.
My clients are always like, wow, if I had enough money, I'd be able to defend myself. Hey, that's not good enough anymore,
No,
folks.
yeah, that's true.
Right?
You just have to switch party affiliation. Christy
That's right.
Fulnecki,
Yes,
thank you so
thank
much
you.
as always. We've got news in 60 seconds. Yesterday, we talked about the fact that there were rumors students in some of or one of the Springfield schools was going to have some form of protest as part of the National Day Against Gun Violence. And let's be honest, it's not against gun violence, it's against guns. Because they don't want to, they're not targeting just guns that are used in violence. They're targeting all guns that could potentially be used for violence. So it's misleading to say that this is against gun violence. It's against the Second Amendment. It's against guns. There's a KY3 had a story, and they noted that around 100 students of Parkview took their lunch hour to walk through the hallways and outside along the sidewalk to show their solidarity with the National Walkout campaign, carried signs with messages like "Children fear going to school," "Stop gun violence," "We are the future of the country, protect us," and "We are next," chanting phrases like "Justice won't wait forever." Several schools, including Kickapoo and Hillcrest, have had shooting calls that turned out to be hoaxes. The Parkview principal, Natalie Caldwell, said, "The protests are not a school activity, but our students are expressing their voice during their free time. Our job as school administrators is to make sure they're doing it in a safe manner, so we are really here in a supervisory position and to make sure our instruction time is not interrupted during the day." Now, this is the position that schools always take whenever the students protest something that they agree with. They say, "Hey, it doesn't have anything to do with the issue whatsoever. I mean, this is just their thing." And as long as they're not doing it during instruction time, they're doing it during lunch on their own time. So, hey, I mean, this is their time to express themselves. They are expressing their voice during their free time. Do you think that this stance would be the same if students were marching against the pushing of Pride Week as pushing off moral beliefs on other people's moral beliefs on them, or if this were an expression of a pro-life position, or if Christians decided to protest the targeting of them and decided as Christians to do the same? Do you think that the school would take the exact same position, say, "Hey, listen, they're expressing their voices," or do you think that they would force them to stop because they're disrupting other students or they are triggering certain students who need to feel that the schools are a safe place? We all know the answer to this. It's crap when they claim that they support the students' right to behave in this manner, regardless of what the issue is. We all know that's not true. We have Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. The author, Cynthia Hughes, is the creator of Patriot Freedom Project. Her nephew was at the Capitol on January 6th, and he was waved into the Capitol by law enforcement, and for going in as invited by law enforcement, he spent a year in jail without due process. There are many that are still being held as political prisoners that were in a similar situation as her nephew. She has written Due Process Denied, January 6th, to detain the families, the fallout. We will talk with her coming up here in just a couple of moments. Jason Ryman now with the latest news update. First alert forecast, a partly sunny day, 57 for a high, 33 tonight. Partly sunny, 62 tomorrow, mostly sunny Saturday, 66. Easter Sunday, mostly sunny. Beautiful weather, 68. Springfield's Talk 1041. My name is Nick Reed, and it is Thursday, which means it's Author of the Week. And as always, Author of the Week sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, just south of Kearney, making our Author of the Week interviews possible. And boy, it just seems like this is such a timely author. Cynthia Hughes is with us. The book is Due Process Denied, January 6th. The detained, the families, the fallout. Thank you so much for, one, writing the book, but being here as well. And I'd like to start off and actually, just because it seems to fall into the theme, get your thoughts on what's developed this week with this indictment of Trump, if you do have any thoughts on that.
Well, clearly he is he is a target. We've known that for a very long time. We know that, his political opponents are using the American people as pawns to take Donald Trump down. That's why you have so many people that are caught up in this January 6th debacle to begin with. I think that, what this government and some of the states coming after Donald Trump, I think that their political theater and bias is on full display for everybody in this country to see. And I think that it's a warning to people that don't align with the current administration or people that are going to continue to support Trump. And I think people have to really be careful in this country right now. We are walking a very, very fine line, a dangerous line. And, I'm worried for people. I'm worried for our country.
In the last couple of days, there have been a number of different articles. One, I think it was in the Federalist, or a piece rather, and it noted that now both Biden and Putin have their political opposition either in jail or jailed. The president of El Salvador noted the day before yesterday that the United States can no longer tell other countries about the virtues of democracy and accuse them of corruption and imprisoning their political opposition, that we've lost credibility there. But Trump, of course, is in the limelight because he's president and he's running for president again. But we're well beyond the warning signs for some time with these January 6th defendants. And to me, the most horrifying aspect of this is the lack of care or concern that with so many Americans that these things have occurred. And if you would describe a bit what it is that you've learned and what is going on in your assessment as you put together all the information in Due Process Denied. What's the situation with these January 6th defendants?
So, well, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to bring your listeners up to speed, or your followers up to speed on this. We wrote this book for a number of reasons, and we also have a docuseries in conjunction with the book. They're both called Due Process Denied. Our book is Due Process Denied: the Detained, the Families, the Fallout, and our docuseries is Due Process Denied: the Families of January 6th. And what I've learned over the course of more than 2 years now, with my own loved one being caught up in this and still behind bars to this this very moment. There's so much sadness and heartache. These families have been obliterated. These defendants, these detainees, their lives have been, dismantled in so many ways. There's a lot of women that, have lost income, and they're now working, maybe a second job or even a third job. Families that have lost health insurance, families that have been evicted from their homes and, had to be relocated. There's families that have to, travel to D.C. for trial. They have to travel to D.C. for sentencing. They have to travel to another state after their loved one has been sentenced to prison. Some of these families have to travel 12, 13, 14, 15 hours. Some can't fly because they're on a no-fly list. I mean, I'm talking family members. We had a family that went to a prison to see her husband. She traveled a 12-hour drive with her children and her mother-in-law. The visit was all set 2 days in a row, a Saturday and a Sunday, only to get to the prison and learn that the visit was canceled. She took off from work. It's, money to travel, money for a hotel. There's so much sadness in this, and it's all because of, politics. In a normal situation, somebody gets in trouble, with the law. They don't sit in prison for more than 2 years in pretrial detention. They don't get put in solitary confinement. I mean, these jails are still using COVID to, kind of cover up the mistreatment of people. And it's not just January 6th defendants. It's even beyond January 6th defendants. We have a real problem with our judicial system in this country. And so just hearing my nephew, the stories he would tell me, he was in D.C. from January of 2021 until October of 2022, so almost 2 years. The first year he was in true solitary confinement with, 53 other men that were in jail with him. And he would tell me these horrifying stories, and he would ask me to figure out a way to help different detainees and their families. And so I just kind of, tried to get organized, and I created Patriot Freedom Project, and we've helped a lot of families in this, and I felt the need to write about it, because the country and the people in this country, they need to know what's really going on.
We're talking with Cynthia Hughes, author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, the book Due Process Denied: The Detained, the Families, the Fallout. The media has done a very good job of misleading the American people into believing, one, that there were police officers murdered in the Capitol on January 6th. And so there's this assumption a lot of people have that maybe these people, they've been in jail for 2 years plus now, and well, they must have been involved in trying to kill police. They must have done something egregious, so egregious that they're not even allowed to see family members, that they're in solitary confinement. What's a more accurate picture of the type of political prisoners that are being detained right now?
Oh, well, I mean, I feel like, we're all kind of on our own in this. I mean, are you asking about Congress and Senate and the senators and, the people that could be helping us? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I do want to actually learn a bit about that, because it does seem as if, yeah, definitely there's very little support there, and those who appear to offer some support get ridiculed and blocked. But I'm talking about average Americans. They brush aside, I believe, when they hear about those that are imprisoned and have been without any trial thus far, and in their minds they assume that these are probably hardened criminals that committed extreme acts of violence against law enforcement. And what I was asking is, what are you what's the reality? What are the crimes that these people are accused of that are being held as political prisoners?
Well, I was at an event just last night, a fundraiser, and I was asked to come and speak, and I came, and there was a very good amount of people there, and a lot of them, their jaw drops when you tell them what's going on. Why don't we know this? Why don't we know, how bad it is? I think that, let's just be, very honest. There are some people that went to the Capitol with bad intentions on January 6th. And there are some people that might have done some bad things, but that's not the majority. But I think because of some of those people, because of the negative coverage in the media, I think that people in this country that are level-headed, and that's the majority, they don't know what to think, because everybody in this January 6th debacle is caught up in the same basket. Like, for example, we'll talk about my nephew. My nephew committed no acts of violence. He committed no assault. He is not charged with violence. He is not charged with assault. But unfortunately, he had some really insensitive pictures and memes on his phone, just like Douglas Mackey. And the media got a hold of that, and they took that and they ran. And that's all anybody thinks about, is these insensitive, bombastic pictures that came out of his phone that lived in his phone for his eyes only. So nobody wants to look beyond that to say, wow, this country is jailing a man who has no criminal history on nonviolent charges, a man that was in the Army for 12 years before this government threw him out, before any charges were adjudicated. And I feel like people should be really looking at that instead of the controversy around some of these people. And that's the problem. And that's why I had to write this book. That's why we have to have this docuseries. And that's why I have to have, it's important to have these discussions so more people can learn and understand.
To get to the question about what sort of support or even interest you get from elected officials, I was appalled. I know it was a Republican, I think Asa Hutchinson, who announced he's running for the Republican nomination, criticizing Trump for having that what became a huge hit, #1 song on Amazon or Apple, one of the two, of him. It's I think the national anthem, and a number of the political prisoners, the January 6th prisoners, and criticizing that as somehow glorifying the bad things that occurred. And it's just appalling to me that you want to talk about a distraction. The distraction is, while these things are occurring, while you have people that are being held in prison for trespassing for a number of different years, and you have people who should be horrified, some that want higher office to be president of the United States, that act like it's either no big deal or they had it coming. What has your experience been with lawmakers when it comes to this particular situation?
Well, let me just say this, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I mean, I have the endorsement and the support of you know the biggest Republican in this
Yeah.
country, and that's Donald Trump himself.
That was going to be my
Um,
next question to ask about that.
yeah, he's been wonderful. Anybody that says that he is not in support of what's going on with a lot of these families and these defendants doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
He is very saddened by this. I was just in his company 2 weeks ago, and when he found out that we were in West Palm filming part 2 of our docuseries, and I had a bunch of January 6 families, without hesitation, despite everything that he is enduring and going through this very minute, and Lord knows the attacks on this man are insane. He wanted these families to come to Mar-a-Lago and have dinner. He wanted to see them. He wanted to talk to them. He wanted to reassure them. He wanted to give them hope, and that's exactly what he did 2 weeks ago. And I'll say this: Marjorie Taylor Greene and Andy Biggs and Troy Nels and Paul Gosar, Louis Gohmert, Matt Gaetz, and a couple of others maybe. They're vocal, especially MTG. She's very vocal, but that's all we get. I mean, nobody else is doing anything. I mean, Jim Jordan, Ron Johnson, Ted Cruz. I mean, Joe Manchin. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. They know what's going on is wrong. They know that jailing people for this amount of time in pretrial detention is wrong. It's unconstitutional. And they don't say anything. They don't speak up, and they don't help. MTG is doing everything she can, and she's only one person. And they need to get behind her, and they need to help her. She has got a spine like no other politician I have ever seen, other than, maybe Mr. Trump himself.
Right. Final question for Cynthia Hughes, our author of the week, the book Due Process Denied, The Detained, the Families, the Fallout. What can people do? What is it that you need? What is it that they need?
I mean, writing to your members of Congress, writing to your senators, speaking out, learning about this. Visit patriotfreedomproject.com, visit dueprocessdenied.org, visit other sites, follow Julie Kelly at American Greatness, follow Eagle Ed Martin at Phyllis Schlafly Eagle Foundation, and learn and donate, because we are stepping up, and we are helping so many of these families, and we are helping the lawyers with legal fees, and that's what we need, because this is not going to slow down or stop anytime soon. This government is still arresting people. There are still people being thrown in jail. 7-year-old grandmothers, 69-year-old men. They're going to jail, and they're rotting, and they're going to need help. People are losing their jobs, their income. People are losing their church family. People cannot fly. There's a lot of fallout here, and we need the country to rally. Whether you support Donald Trump, whether you don't, whether you're a big Joe Biden lover, whether you're not, you should be an American. That is what comes first, being an American and doing the right thing in this great country.
Thank you so much, and terribly just filled with sorrow for what you and your family have gone through, and all these others. Our author of the week, Cynthia Hughes. The book again, Due Process Denied, The Detained, the Family, the Fallout. This, of course, author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. For Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041 is always
Streaming live as always. Well, other than when we're out at Scramblers, which we will be tomorrow. But while in studio, Springfield Wraps sponsoring our video feed on Facebook and YouTube. They also designed our studio. We're going to talk in moments with Secretary of State Ashcroft announcing this morning he is running for governor. We'll hear from him in just a couple of minutes here on Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. We got a happy hour. Very excited about that, as we always are. Retro Metro, just one of the absolute best places to eat, to drink, to meet friends. And our happy hour at Retro Metro tomorrow from 4 to 6. Love for you to stop by. Of course, we'll kick the morning off with the Friday Road Show at Scramblers, sponsored by Affordable Towing. Want to welcome Secretary of State Ashcroft joins us this morning, making the announcement earlier that he is going to run or running for governor. I want to welcome you to the show and just ask you what thought went into this, what made you decide to run. Just talk to us a bit about it, if you would.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me back. I'm running because Missouri can be better than it is. We need a government that's reactive to the people of the state, that isn't getting in their way, that is creating opportunity, that is creating an environment of safety for them so they can enjoy their liberty and be the best that they can be. We hear people across the country talking about other states, Texas, Florida, Tennessee. They're not talking about Missouri, and it's because we don't have the right leadership in Missouri. We have too many politicians that want to fix the blame. I'm an engineer. I want to fix the problem. I want to make Missouri that beacon of freedom. As I would say, I want to make it the front lines of freedom in this United States. This is the place where people can be the best they can be.
I was talking earlier about the state of South Carolina, and yesterday one of the Democrat lawmakers announced that she switched to Republican, which gave the Republicans a supermajority, and they have begun in lightning speed passing legislation that the governor there has vetoed now that they have what the veto-proof majority. And a lot of it has to do with protecting girls' sports and protecting kids from being lured into irreversible surgeries while they're minors. And these are things in Missouri that we really, even though there's not only is there a super majority, but we got a Republican governor, yet for whatever reason, things that other states just really, we got to get this done. Missouri seems slow on. Republicans do control everything. So as here you are, and you're running for governor as a Republican, and you know we can do better. What are some areas that you feel that, despite the fact Republicans are in charge, that haven't either been done or they're too slow moving? What are some of those areas?
Well, I mean, you talk about protecting women's sports. You talk about protecting minors from surgical castrations or chemical castrations with these what they euphemistically call gender-affirming surgeries. You know, Missouri should have prohibited those for minors last year. We haven't done that yet. We have a bill that made it out of the state Senate, but it would have only banned them for 4 years. Evidently, it would have said that after 4 years they're okay. That's ridiculous. We've been talking about the lack of educational opportunities for people in Missouri for as long as I've been alive, for decades. I remember when my father was governor, we were looking at ways to make sure that every child in the state could get a good education. We still need to fix that. We need to make sure that every child in the state can get a challenging education, and it's about time we quit talking about local control in the form of school boards and superintendents and started talking about real local control, which is putting the children's education in the control of their parents. Parents know best. They know better than the administration. They know better than the superintendent. They know better than DESE. That's one of the first steps we need to do. We need to get a handle on the crime problem. In St. Louis, Missouri, we have people that live in neighborhoods where they are scared when they have to leave their houses, where the criminals run around knowing that they will not be prosecuted. We need to go back to the rule of law so that people can feel safe and know that they can take opportunities and be the best that they can be. We need to cut spending. In 6 years, we have a state budget that's essentially doubled. That is not something that can continue. Our government, the Missouri state of Missouri, passed the largest tax increase in its history just a couple of years ago. We have more money sitting in bank accounts that the state can use that it doesn't know how to use it than we ever have in the history of the state, and yet hardworking families across the state are trying to figure out how they make their paychecks stretch to the next paycheck. The world is turned upside down. We need to get back to the people controlling the purse strings. We need to get back to the idea of a government of, by, and for the people, not of the lobbyists, for the special interests, and against the people.
Talking again just about areas that I have frustration regarding the Republicans controlling things, yet not getting certain areas done that seemingly are presented as principles of the Republican Party. In a lot of states have school choice. Republicans that run a number of states have implemented school choice in a number of ways. It's been in what I consider a watered-down fashion introduced, talked about legislatively. It's essentially, well, if the schools want to allow people to have choice. But what do you feel about that particular legislation, the whole issue of school choice for students and families in Missouri?
The problem with that legislation that's been watered down and passed is it still focuses on the school. It still focuses on the administration. It still focuses on the school board. It's not focusing on who should be making the decisions for that child. It's that child's parents. It's not focused on what is best for the child. We shouldn't be about building public schools, building gymnasiums. We should be about educating kids. We spend more money on education than we ever have in the history of this state, and our test scores are continuing to plummet. Right now, I send one of my kids to the public high school here in Jefferson City, Capital City High School. I send 3 of my kids to a private school. It costs me less money per child to send my 3 kids to private school, a school that I like, a school that does a good job of teaching them. It costs me less money to send each of them to that school than the state would pay to send them to a public school that wouldn't do the right job. We should give every parent in this state every parent, regardless of where they live, the same opportunity to choose how their child is educated that I have as Secretary of State.
I had mentioned earlier in the program that we were having you on and that you were announcing today your run for governor, and I had encouraged people if there were any specific questions they had to text in. And what's really and here's what's really interesting: all of the questions that have come in are related to Trump's indictment, January 6th people that are awaiting trial still in jail, and just your overall thoughts on that whole situation, and they're just curious what you feel about all of that.
It makes us look like a banana republic. I am incredibly distressed. I'm devastated that is what the justice system has been perverted into for so many people in our country. The United States used to be the bastion of liberty. It was that beacon on a hill of freedom, that everyone was supposed to be treated equally under the law. No one can even pretend with a straight face to say that there's equality under the law. How you are treated by our justice system in Washington, D.C. and in New York is clearly determined by whether or not you have bowed down to government and sworn your fealty to it, or whether or not you believe that we the people should be in charge. It's atrocious. It's wrong. We cannot give up the fight. We cannot allow it to continue.
The things that you say are things that strike me as positions that are not going to necessarily set well with what I call establishment Republicans in Missouri. Do you? What I anticipate is if they believe that you will really push them on a number of these issues, I imagine they'll recruit somebody to try and run against you. Is that something that you've thought about? Is that on the radar? Are there already rumblings of an establishment candidate running to try to prevent you from getting the nomination that you know of?
I think we're clearly going to see an election where there's a bright line choice between the creatures of the swamps of politics versus someone that believes the people should be in charge, that government is there to serve the people, that we're better off with limited government, we're better off with lower taxes, and what we need to do is tame the beast of government. We have too many people, and I'm sure we'll see that fight. I like to say in Missouri, we kind of have three parties. We have the government is good, which tends to be the Democrats. We have big government is bad unless I'm in charge, which is all too many of our Republicans. And then we have, I believe, that the true patriots that understand that government is not the goal. The goal is unleashing the potential, the God-given potential of Missourians, and we do that best by making government as small as possible. So, yeah, we're going to see that stereotypical battle between big government and small government, between a politician that fixes the blame and an engineer that fixes the problem, between people that are going to get things done and people that are going to take checks from special interests. Yes, that'll be the difference.
We're talking with Secretary of State Ashcroft, running for governor. It's not a question as much as a thought, and then I'll give you the last moments, any final thoughts you have for people in Missouri. I tell you what I want as a citizen of Missouri. I want our governor, whomever it is, perhaps you, to be as known nationally as Ron DeSantis or Kristi Noem or Greg Abbott. And while those states aren't perfect, they clearly are targets of the big government people because they do real meaningful change in the right direction. When there are stories about people fleeing California and New York, it's while they go to a number of places, it's always noted Florida or Texas. I want Missouri to be on that map. I want Missouri to be known nationally as a crazy anti-government state, as it's presented in Florida primarily. And you know, like I said, it's more of a statement than anything, I suppose, to you from a citizen and a voter to you as a candidate for the governorship. And that being said, any final thoughts that you have?
I think that's an expectation that we should have for all of the individuals that want our votes. I think we need to raise our expectations for our candidates. When we vote in August of 2024, we shouldn't just expect more. We need to require more. And I would encourage the people of Missouri to look at my record, look at what I've said I would do, look at what I've done, look at the fact that when we've acted to fight against ESG and social companies using your investments against you, other states have followed what we did by rule. When we've taken a stand to protect children in libraries from pornographic material, other states have called me up and said, hey, what did you do? How did you do that? That's a novel way to do things. When we have been making changes in how we run our elections, states like Florida and Texas and other states across the country are calling Missouri up to say, wait a minute, what did you do? That's really neat. I want your advice on how I can do that. That will continue when the people of the state allow me to serve as their governor. That's my promise to the people. That's why I'm running. I don't want a different title. I don't want a different position. I want to serve the people of the state in the best way possible. That's why I'm asking for their vote as their Missouri governor in August of 2024.
Running for governor, Secretary of State Ashcroft, it's always a pleasure to hear from you, and I suspect we'll hear more from you definitely between now and August of 2024 and perhaps November of 2024 as well. Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful
You too.
Easter.
He is risen.
Thank you, sir. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Look, it's Sarah Myers.
That's me. Well, believe it or not, but spring is here, which means you're probably hanging around outside of your home, and you may have noticed that it's time to do some roof repairs. So who can you trust? Who do you call? Well, I have an answer for you, and that is the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, Josh and the Pyramid Roofing Company are as professional as they get. They will come out, they'll do a free estimate, and they will take photos and videos to show you exactly what is going on with your roof. And they also educate you on what would be the best approach for your home and your roofing needs. I really like that about the Pyramid team because whenever I had them look at my roof, I knew absolutely nothing about roofs. So we talked about everything from different types of shingles to the right amount of vents to insulation in my attic. And I feel really good now because not only do I have a brand new roof, but I also have a little bit more knowledge too. So if you're looking for a great roofing company, give the Pyramid Roofing Company a call today. You can find that phone number for the Pyramid Roofing team housed at ksgf.com under the Sarah's Endorsements tab.
I thought this was an interesting story, given that Republicans hate poor people and Republicans are always looking to slash programs. Biden administration slammed for, quote, breathtaking proposal slashing dairy access for low-income moms and kids. The Biden administration facing fierce scrutiny. This, by the way, this is for all you Biden supporters that hate Republicans because they don't want to help the poor. They don't want to help the hungry. This is a story for you. The Biden proposal would slash the amount of milk that millions of participants in the Women, Infants, and Children Food Benefits Program, known as WIC, would be able to receive, potentially slashing milk rations by as much as 25%. International Dairy Food Association President and CEO Michael Dyke said the proposed change was stunning, noting that there hasn't even been a clear expectation for the potential pivot. Quote, it's stunning to us that they would do this. We've not had a good, clear reason as to why they would cut a WIC, mom and her children, up to 3 gallons per month of milk. It just takes your breath away that they would do this at the same time where we are, this abrupt change, and we don't have a clear expectation. WIC is the government-run program supplying states with federal grants for supplemental foods, healthcare referrals, and nutritional education for low-income, pregnant, breastfeeding, and non-breastfeeding postpartum women, and to infants and children up to the age of 5 who are found to be at nutritional risk. Dykes noted the change will have a negative impact on the health of women and children nationwide, warning that 90% of Americans already do not get the recommended 3 servings of dairy per day. By the way, those are government recommendations. The proposal will make matters worse for mothers and their children who rely on government assistance. He noted this is bad for nutrition. It's bad for WIC mothers. There are about 6 million WIC mom and children. About 43% of all infants of the U.S. are on WIC. This type of abrupt change will mean probably 20% will have to drop out of the program. So here you've got the Biden administration kicking poor mothers and children off WIC. The slashing of milk for hungry children. All of this while inflation is going on, thanks to the Biden administration. Now, this is the Biden administration, not evil Republicans. Once again, here are Democrats doing what it is that they falsely, constantly accuse Democrats. Where are all the local news stories, by the way, on this? Can we get some local news stories about this, please? Can we get interviews with moms who have their crying babies in their arms talking about how they don't know what they're going to do without this assistance, how they're already having a hard time making ends meet, and they don't know how they're going to feed their hungry children with this Biden rule change? That might be a good local component to this story. I won't hold my breath. You know, the move by the Biden administration to slash milk from the WIC program for poor women and their children, that's come just days after the Biden administration announced that they were also slashing funding for Medicare Advantage. I love the media's scramble to tell you that's not what's really happening here. There is article, if you try to Google this, you'll see fact-checking. Well, that's technically what's not happening. Experts say that that's not a fair characterization. What they're doing is they're just cutting the funding to the providers of the medical care, which it's the same thing. They also describe it as the Biden administration making a move to strengthen the program. So when Democrats accuse Republicans of planning on slashing programs, they are awful, they're horrible, they're maniacal, they're dangerous. When Democrats do it, they're not actually doing it. And by the way, they're actually saving the program. That's what they're doing. They're making the program better for you. 4 employees at a Florida strip club were arrested after allegedly allowing a 14-year-old girl to perform at the club for several years, according to court records. The unnamed girl was reportedly hired to work at the club in 2019 when she was just 15 years old. She worked there still dancing until 2021, despite still being just 17. Now, here you go, backwards Florida once again. Refusing to allow a young person to make decisions for her own body. This is the backwards world of Ron DeSantis. I mean, after all, this is genuinely consistency from the left. If you believe that a 15-year-old is wise enough to make decisions to take drugs and have surgeries that are irreversible with their body, why can't they dance at a strip club as well? Why are they not old enough to make that decision? It's their body. If that's what they want to do, if that's who they are, who are we to tell them? What sort of bigots? In fact, how horrible to stop them from acting out in a way that feels natural to them. We'll see you tomorrow at Scramblers, Friday Roadshow sponsored by Affordable Towing. And then we will be at Retro Metro Happy Hour from 4 to 6 tomorrow afternoon. Glenn Beck is coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.